Travolting presents The Fraser's Edge. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering with honors. With special guest, Ross Wood. Stuart, we may have done 10 episodes of Fraser's Edge so far.
Yeah.
But we must complete the full 63 if we ever hope to graduate
with honors.
I knew it was coming. Somebody was going to use
I figured we just had to get it out of the way quick. Just to make the joke now.
Yeah. I was like, am I going to be the one who uses it? Or are they going to? Someone's going to use it.
I'm like, we're going to be sitting in anticipation. No one's going to be able to like focus on the movie because everyone's waiting for the guy who's going to make the joke.
Well, and like they do it like at least like 3 times in the movie.
Yes.
So I feel like we got at least like 3 uses of it.
Yes.
More or less. So
we were 1 down. We have 2 to go.
Yeah. One was without honors, though.
Yes.
So I don't know if that one counts.
Well, we then just have to express that we're without honors.
Right.
If someone says something that I strongly disagree with, I'm just going to tell you you are without honors.
You are just summa cum laude at that point.
Summa basic.
Yeah.
Basic cum laude.
Yeah.
Just summa, then magna, then cum laude, then no cum laude.
No laude.
What if they did that at universities where like someone's up there and they're like, he graduates without cum laude?
Oh, if they actually stated Jeff Sweeney, no cum laude. My gosh. Have you guys heard of like the debate that's going around about removing the valedictorian title in high schools?
I had actually recently heard about that. It's been a while, and I didn't like fully get into it. But I did see an article about it, and I was curious about it.
Yeah. I also like kind of just recently got into it as well. But this movie reminded me of that, about just that whole like debate topic. Have you heard of that, Jeff?
No.
Yeah, it's basically just like I don't think they don't have valedictorians, at least where I went. Like we didn't have valedictorian in college. It was always a high school thing. But I don't know, like did any of you guys have like that title in college?
My school did, but I have no idea what happened to him.
High school was a thing. In my school, we did like a it wasn't like a valedictorian because it was an art school, so it was like best in show portfolio review, where you just basically showed your portfolio to a bunch of different like one alum and just like business prospects and stuff people who could hire you afterwards. But that was about it. It's a little different though because they don't really give a shit, or I don't know if we can swear on this.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, sweet. I don't know if we can like
Fuck yeah, we can swear.
But they didn't really give a shit if we about our grades or anything. It was just all about the body of work and how they interpreted it when they saw it.
I feel like that's more worthy of that title than valedictorian is.
In a way, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Well, Jeff, the whole debate about that is basically just like the idea that like students, the valedictorian title breeds the culture in
incentivizes grades instead of accomplishment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Is that the idea?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
This movie, I think, would be in support of getting rid of the valedictorian system.
Exactly.
Because this movie is a celebration of accomplishments, not grades.
Right.
Yeah. Especially, at the end, he definitely swaps his sort of thinking.
Yes.
Which was kind of a nice sort of... Now, I had issues with the end. Like, I actually really enjoyed this movie, but the ending I did have issues with.
Interesting.
But one thing I thought that this movie was genius about was his thesis about like how the interconnectivity of like the internet before the internet was a thing.
Right.
He does at one point say interactive cable will save us.
Yeah. And like it will bring more democracy, and to a certain extent it has brought more people have a voice. Although it's not to say that there isn't like some sort of manipulation in other things. Yeah. Like what information gets out there, but people do have more of a voice. And I was like, that's pretty profound. For them to think that back in 1994.
A Brendan Fraser, Joe Pesci movie.
Yeah.
This movie does have a lot of like really profound, like philosophical.
This is
like,
kind of a
statement.
treatise on what the their hopes for the internet.
Yes,
Hopes that in some respects have been, sown, and some that have been dashed by absolute chaos.
Jeff, when you were watching this movie, did you think like, oh my god, this is such a Stuart Elmore film?
Well, yes, it's set at a school.
And it's got issues with fathers and sons.
I know Stuart movie is like. I brought you to see Top Gun because I knew it would be a Stuart movie.
It is a Stuart movie.
He was literally sitting in the seat saluting.
Oh
so
my
wait,
god.
you have a thing. What, are you a big Good Will Hunting fan?
Yes.
That's exactly what.
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah,
Oh!
I was like, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon owe Brendan Fraser some money.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a lot of similarities, actually. I mean, there was a better pedigree with, Gus Van Sant and everything on
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting. But I was like, there's actually... I know that they worked together on School Ties and they were doing some stuff, but, Robin Williams was like the scruffy guy.
Yeah.
But he was the, basic whatever. And then the intelligent guy was Matt Damon's character.
Yeah.
Where this kind of switches, like the intelligent guy you don't expect is, the older,
homeless guy.
scruffy, homeless guy.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's been other movies that have like sort of either, I don't know if it came before or after, but there have been other movies about that where it's like, oh, like we got a homeless guy in our life now. What do we do?
Yeah.
And then it's a learning lessons movie about, oh, well, they're people too. And it's sort of how, I mean, I feel like this movie like does the most profoundness with that whole topic. But
It goes a step because, like, when this movie started, I was like, oh, I've seen this pitch before.
yes.
And, like,
yes.
The basic pitch of, college students learn that a homeless person is a real human.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to film school. Like, that every single freshman year film class, that idea is pitched.
Yeah.
And every single time the teacher's like, for the love of God, don't do that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to handle it with grace and consistency.
Yeah.
No, grace the particular term
Yes.
because it's always like some like ignorant message that is completely not the point of what they should be making. It's like, oh yeah, like homeless people are people too, and then they continue going on with like the regular capitalist ways.
This movie tries to basically go with the idea of homeless people lived lives.
Yes, yes.
Although in this movie, what they did do well was that the one character, I cannot remember his name, the one that does not like Joe Pesci.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Not Monty, not Patrick Dempsey.
Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah, his name's Jeff.
Oh, how did I forget that?
I don't know.
But Jeff, he does acknowledge, I believe it was him, maybe it was Brendan Fraser, who said, most homeless people are, deal with schizophrenia. And so they did, touch on what does lead to a lot of homelessness. But while also saying, not all of them, even though maybe a majority are like that, not necessarily all of them. And so don't judge and blah, blah, blah. The same sort of story we've seen.
There's a
before.
million and a half different paths that lead someone to become homeless, and those lives deserve to be explored and, talked about as much as those who have success.
Right.
But yeah, it was really interesting. There's some interesting things, but I think really the saving grace of the homeless person and why it was great is Pesci.
Joe Pesci.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
Pesci.
Bada
man.
bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
Oh my! It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the spaghetti and the stromboli.
Before we dive into the Pesci of it all, we
Yes.
did mention School Ties.
Yes.
And that is a good segue into our Fraser Context Corner of the week,
Yes.
which is ostensibly, he does School Ties, which is another movie about Brendan Fraser in school. And
Yeah.
that he's in high school, and this he's in college.
Yeah.
But it's essentially, this is the movie that he follows up School Ties with.
Spiritual sequel. Like,
Spiritual sequel, but also after School Ties, the movies that we've talked about were 20 Bucks, Younger and Younger, Son-in-Law. Like, those aren't, in one of them he's just a cameo, and two of them didn't really exist.
Yeah.
Like 20 Bucks and Younger were like, he has prominent roles in those movies.
Those are more or less paycheck roles.
Well, even if they're not, they're like super small indies that nobody saw.
Yeah.
So in the popular consciousness, this is his follow-up to School Ties. And, you know, we talked about with School Ties, that's the movie he really wanted to pop off instead of Encino Man, and then Encino Man's the one that became a success.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, I think, well, I don't know if it was the last episode, but because next week we're going to talk about Airheads.
Yes.
And I think this was something that, you know, as we're going through this filmography, is that he is kind of taking a pattern, turn.
One for them, one for me.
One for them, one for me thing here. And that was like, you know, School Ties and Encino Man, which I know they released-wise were flipped backwards. But then, then he does like $20, which is more or less a drama.
Yeah.
And then Younger,
if we
which
only
is
take the Chris Lloyd section.
Well,
it's the best movie of the year.
Ross, if you've not seen $20, just watch the Steve Buscemi, Christopher Lloyd segment of it. It's anthology like style, so it's you can just like pick random pieces of it. But and then Younger, which is a bamboozled comedy,
A wild movie where Donald Sutherland plays an organ and summons the spirit of his dead wife.
Yes, that's a weird one. And then this movie,
yes.
And so I feel like
son-in-law as well, but he's just a cameo in it.
Right. So I feel like there definitely is like a pitter pattern of like comedy drama, and this is his turn to do a comedy or drama.
Yes, this is the path he's trying to put himself on, but he's still taking the comedy roles because that gets people out to see him.
Yeah,
I think that it's again like he's an interesting just person in particular because he doesn't have. Like, he's kind of a leading man. He's handsome, but not like movie star handsome.
Yeah, he's not like the most attractive.
Yeah, and he's, but he understands like how to be funny, and he understands also how to be serious, and he can, you know, do both. Like, next week you guys are doing, or the next episode you guys are doing Airheads, which. Yeah. Jeez, what a great movie. I've seen that movie so many times.
Oh
it's ridiculous. And it's so funny because I look at the Rotten Tomatoes and stuff beforehand, and I see what the like ratings a lot of these movies were getting and about his sort of performances. And I just think people didn't get it then. I don't think that they like were able because they were so used to like it has to be a movie. So it's got to be Brad Pitt. It's got to be Tom Cruise, or if it's like super dramatic, I'm going to need some Meryl Streep in there. I'm going to need some Anthony Hopkins. I'm going to need somebody who's got some weight. And he was like this in between, like where he was funny, he was dramatic, but like he wasn't like the top of any particular thing.
Yeah.
Something we've talked about that separates him, especially from Travolta, is that he's very egoless when it comes to the roles he picks and the performances he gives. And that Travolta was always coming into a movie and he's giving a Travolta performance in this movie.
Yeah.
Fraser is willing to give himself as an artist to the creative of the movie and give what they need and and like fulfill his role in the movie.
Yeah.
And like his role in this movie isn't like, it's not like he's like, rocking the house or anything. He's willing to show up and be like, Pesci is like the draw of this movie. My character still has to go through an arc. I will do exactly what this movie needs of me.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be
and it balances,
found admirable
and it shows. I feel like it shows in the movie because it's very balanced in that regard. We know who is our main draw, but we also know who's going to have like the finishing turn.
He's not. He doesn't have an ego big enough where he feels like he needs to be the draw of a movie.
Yeah.
He's willing to let something else be the draw and just play his supporting role.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think though funny enough, again watching it last night, I don't think other people could have elevated. The film, the entire film, the way he elevated it. Because he was a straight man and he was the one going through the biggest arc and we followed his story the most, but we obviously did that with Pesci as well. Yeah. And Jeff to a smaller extent. But he did it in such a way that it elevated the material. Like, it's a very 1990s. You could put this movie you could do a double feature with this and like while you were sleeping. Yeah. It's a 1990s movie.
It looks very nice.
Yeah. However, like, I feel like if I watch the two of those movies back to back, and I watch while you were sleeping, it's part of the Christmas ritual. Because there's like so many. Batman Returns, great Christmas movie.
Tremendous Christmas movie.
The fact that
people talk about Die Hard Christmas movie, talk about Batman Returns.
Batman
Christmas
Returns.
Oh my god!
I could watch every Christmas. It's amazing. So, but like not to go off
best
on
Batman movie? Question mark?
Oh, it's my favorite Keaton one for sure. But I think for me, it's just below The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, like that's the thing where I'm like, every time I watch Batman Returns or The Dark Knight, I'm like, well, this is the best Batman movie, and then I'm like, well, is it though?
Yeah. It's tough. It's those sequels. The sequels they like just.
Robert Pattinson has big shoes to fill for his Batman too.
Yeah, because if part 2, one was interesting in tone. Oh, sorry, thank you. Okay. One was interesting in tone.
Yeah.
For Robert Pattinson's.
Yeah.
But I think it built an interesting world, but there's more to go on with this.
But if the Batman too is not the best movie.
A tangent I wanted to pick up from was, Ross, something
We're
that
like
you said.
mid-tangent, and Stuart's like, well, we got to pick up this other tangent.
I want to pick up another tangent, Brendan Fraser related tangent, but it's something that you said, Ross, where it's like he really divines that fine line of comedy and drama very well that a lot of people didn't get early in the 90s. And it's a little bit early to be mentioning this now, but something that I've been keeping close attention on is we're getting closer and closer to George of the Jungle, The Mummy stage.
Yes.
Where he transitions from comedy, mostly comedy, somewhat drama, to full-blown action star.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's a great thing for him.
He goes full-blown action star, comedy, with like rom-com lead in the middle.
Yes, but it's that action star with that rom-com in the middle that is kind of part of his death.
Yeah.
Because it's that phase that pretty much when people look at it all and like Brendan Fraser's like sort of downfall from fame. I mean, there's a lot of things that went into it, but one of the elements, as big or little as part of it as it played, was how like.
Well, once he can't do action anymore.
Yeah, well, because
no one wants to put him in a drama.
By the time it was Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, he said like he was basically like a shell because he'd done all his stunts on his own in the earlier movies. He was doing all these bigger action sequences. And so when it got to the part where he's like still not like old at all, like he's still like young 40s at Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yeah.
But because he took so much abuse in those earlier movies, he's like broken. And so that's kind of something that I always keep eyes on as we're going forward in the Fraser thing. Is it's gonna sound like by George of the Jungle, it's like, look at this guy, he did it, but it's not like the best trajectory for him. And
I think there's a lot of extenuating circumstances post
absolutely
that hurt him. I think in terms of what we love him now for, it was the perfect trajectory for him, and then things got out of hand as a result.
We'll talk more as the series continues, but it was just something that you were saying,
wanted to
Ross.
lay the groundwork.
The groundwork for, we're talking about right now about his drama comedy split, but knowing that coming the next train station we're getting closer towards right now is his action star
movie star
period, which is
I think we should just it's just the movie star period. It's gonna be like action comedy. No, he's just doing movie star roles because there's a fine line between a performance and a movie star role. And movie star, and he gets movie star roles.
And well, the thing was, I mean, George of the Jungle, he was, obviously ripped, and he brought a comedy to it that nobody, like a sense of humor that nobody else could, I think, do besides him. But The Mummy was just like, it wasn't critically a well-loved movie. Again, where I think critics just, I don't know what they're thinking. Sometimes critics have as many biases as, just anybody else. They've got their own shit going on. But The Mummy is a great movie.
Oh, it's subjectively.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you go in, you have a great time. It's fun.
Rewatchable. Yeah,
totally. And the effects hold up, surprisingly. Maybe not so much on the sequel. Even at the time, I didn't think that, the Scorpion King looked great.
Yeah.
The Rock.
Even at the time, I was just like, Jesus, this is what they think that looks good. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
But the first one is great. But he's like, I think part of his downfall, which there's a lot that could go into it, and can be discussed. But like, one, the Mummy, crazy handsome.
Yeah.
Like he's got the sort of handsomeness. Like it's perfect. The hair is perfect.
I'm gonna lay the groundwork right now and just say I think The Mummy is the hottest movie ever made.
Oh yeah, I mean
it's all hot people in a hot environment kissing in the middle of a desert.
Yeah, it's
very hot.
It's the hottest movie ever made.
Yeah, I mean everything about it. But he's got the charm. He's got like what he's got. I dare say more charm than Indiana Jones. And he's quick and he's handsome and he's fun and he's not like he just encompassed all of that thing. And I think part of his downfall was literally, part of it was his looks going, his hair going. That was part of it, but I know that there's more.
There's a lot of elements.
Yeah, there was a lot of elements, but he was just like, I mean, that was it, right? With The Mummy, the first one, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, the critics who give it any negative review literally
get out of here.
Well, they didn't see it through the correct lens. Like, I feel like each movie, you can't put them all together and review them all as the same. Because they're not all some are made for this and some are made for that.
You got to look at a movie through the object of what it's intended to do, and if it succeeds at that intention.
And I think that's a perfect segue into With Honors, because I think this is a movie that can easily be paired up, like what you were saying, Ross, with a sliver of like so many copy paste stamp release 90s movies. But if you actually take the time to watch it, like it's successful in its goal, I feel like. And I enjoyed this movie. I liked it. I would say like Act 2 dragged a little bit for me. Like I was kind of like, okay, like, let's see what's going on. But by the time we were getting more into Sonny's life.
Yes. I knew you were Sonny.
Yeah, more into Sonny's life and more into Monty's experience with Sonny. That I felt like that, brought a lot more than just this. Oh, thank you, Siri. That brought a lot more than just the standard, homeless people are people too. It's kind of going back to what you said, Jeff. Yeah. It's that homeless people lived lives before this.
And so maybe they're good, maybe they're bad, but they lived a life.
Yeah.
So
that was perfect. Jeff, do you have any pretext to this movie?
I do actually, because the director of this movie, I just want to talk about him really quick and how this movie basically got off the ground.
Yeah.
So the director of this movie is Alex Kasheshian.
Okay.
Are you sure about that?
I am 100% sure about that. And so Alex Kasheshian he's a music video director, gets into the industry doing that, and someone sees one of his music videos, and her name is Madonna. Oh. And she's immediately like, this guy's got the goods. So she hires him to direct her concert documentary film, Madonna, Truth or Dare, which becomes the highest grossing documentary of all time when it comes out in 92, I believe. It's beaten 10 years later by Bowling for Columbine. That becomes the highest grossing documentary afterward. But for a 10-year period, this is the highest grossing documentary. And so he directed it, and so he kind of gets the Hollywood, the blank check treatment. Hollywood's like, okay, you made a very successful documentary. We're going to let you make a movie now. Pick your movie. And this is the script that he settles on. It's written by William Mastrosimone, who hasn't really done anything else of major note aside from this. But that's the script he kind of gets attracted to. Madonna signs on to write a song for the movie and to assist with the production. She gets nominated for a Golden Globe later for the song that plays over the end credits. But, with Madonna's help, this movie gets right off the ground. Alec gets the ability to make it the way he wants. And so when he goes to casting the movie, he gets Joe Pesci in on it, he gets Fraser in on it, and then he gets the rest of the gang in on it, because they all play their roles in this movie, but it's the Pesci Fraser dynamic that Kashishian
Disrespect to Dempsey. God damn.
I know.
Well, not disrespect.
The hair he had in that movie.
He does have quite...
He's always had the hair, though.
The locks.
I mean, Dr. McDreamy.
Yeah.
But the thing that's funny is after this, Kashishian only directs 2 more movies.
And then is back to music videos after that, right?
Well, he goes right back to music videos after this movie. Then he makes an indie called Love and Other Disasters in 2006.
Okay.
Then he goes back to commercials. There's like a bunch of Toyota commercials. Makes one more movie in 2011 called W.E., which he co-writes with Madonna.
I know that, yeah.
And then he doesn't do anything else. And this year he came out with a Selena Gomez documentary.
Oh.
But like it's all music videos and commercials in between.
What game
It's a
is
very
he
interesting
playing
career
at?
path that he's on. That like this is his one Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
He does documentaries and 2 indies, but this is his one Hollywood movie.
Well, you can make a lot more money for sure in like just in living the commercial world and doing like people think that, you know, film directors are just like making so much money, but unless you're Spielberg,
more.
Unless you're Spielberg or somebody like that who also is producing and, you know,
royalties are still coming in from your 1975 classics.
It reminds me a lot of Shaney Gabble from A Love Song for Bobby Long.
Really bring that up.
Sorry.
But I will just quickly say the reason Kashishian's attracted to this movie is because he also went to Harvard. And now we may continue with your story.
Oh
No, that was it. Just Shaney Gabble, who had only done one movie beforehand, Anthem, 1997, and then contracted to do Love Song for Bobby Long
Very good.
afterwards. So that was it. That was all.
Okay, very good.
Nothing else after that.
Very good.
No movie since. She quit directing after that, evidently.
Yes. Kashishian 2 movies since, but this is his only Hollywood.
But still going, yeah.
Yeah, I think he probably what I kind of get from this movie is that I don't know how much control he had, because if you look at like his like what he's done in terms of music videos and all, this is a very Hollywood movie for that time period.
Yeah,
you know, it's not.
It checks all the boxes in terms of how it's shot and designed and whatnot.
It's not like Spike Lee who put his own spin on it. And had probably a little bit more control of something, and that's why, you know, his first movie being John Malkovich was like, it's so well regarded, whereas this one's a little bit, you know, it's forgotten for the most part.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks of With Honors. I remember watching it the first time. I was on a TWA plane back whenever they still played the big movies, and it was big plane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because my parents were divorced and bi-coastal, so I would, a lot of times, me and my brother would fly back and forth for summers and stuff, and I watched this movie on a plane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I remembered it. It was
fun.
Like it was a fun. I did like it. I liked at the time, you know, in my youth. You know, I thought Joe Pesci was just cool. Like, I mean, there's this old guy just nuts, you know. And as a young kid, you think that's hilarious. You think everything he's doing is funny. He's like sitting on the crapper and yelling at some dude, you know.
You forgot to flush.
Yeah. So I definitely had that memory, but watching it now, it's a totally different sort of experience. And I think that's why the end doesn't quite stick it for me. I had some serious
issues with the ending.
One big issue is Joe Pesci has some of the best death scenes in Hollywood cinema. This is not one of them.
Damn. Damn.
Yeah. It's up there with what's her face, Marion Cotillard on Dark Knight
Rises.
Yeah. It's up there with that. Like his eyes kind of just close over and he just kind of goes to the side. Yeah. So that wasn't great. And then you know, I knew what they were trying to pull off at the end, and they were really trying to get sentimental about stuff, but them reading
all the notes,
the Walt Whitman, so they're reading it and they're doing this montage where it's supposed to be like this really powerful sort of thing, but it's just like each one's reading the same poem
Yeah.
over. So like if you think about it, it's just these freaking 4 or 5 kids just like reading the same stupid fucking poem.
Yeah, because it transitions like mid-sentence from one of them to the other. And like cool cool film idea, but like when you think about the context, like you're saying, it's just like all 4 of them get on, they're like, all right, here I go reading the same thing to you again as you lay there dying.
Yeah.
It's just like, just get another book. Yeah. Let's get something else.
I know, like they could have like done a different poem. Like each of them you could have transitioned it pretty well, I think, easily, and it would have still worked. And you wouldn't have to think of just like, for me, that was just like a minor little gripe. But like, yeah, like at the end, it got really sappy and sentimental, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing. Like, I mean, at the end of The Color Purple, man, I'm not gonna lie, I bawl my eyes out.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Great
but
movie.
I love
Yeah.
it. Like, I mean, if you watch that movie like Christmas time, which is really tragic because it's such a sad movie, but like, I don't know, something about the snow around and being warm and cozy and watching that movie, at the end of that movie, every time I bawl, like I'm just sobbing because I'm happy. She's had the worst life, and finally, you know, she gets to see her kids, and she's so happy, and she deserves to be happy. And oh God,
I mean, Jeff and I, this was a few weeks ago, went to a theatrical screening of E.T.
Oh yeah.
And Jeff, do you want to describe?
Oh, it was the waterworks.
Oh yeah, Jeff and I cried.
It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you cried that much though. I cried more than you probably.
You got a little heavier. Than
I got a little heavier than Jeff. Well, it's the scene where Drew Barrymore's on the hospital bed.
Okay.
And they shock E.T. and she like jolts and then she starts crying. Oh,
Yeah.
breaks me every time.
I just found out a fun fact. I don't know if it was from you or I read it online. Oh no, I think I read it online. Did you know that E.T., which you will not believe this, is a plant?
Yeah.
Yes, he's supposed to be a fungus.
Yeah, you did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody, I just found this out, and somebody was like, well, they asked some actor who was working with Spielberg, and Spielberg said, like, no, he's an actual, like, of the plant species.
If you ever go to Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, and you ride E.T. the Adventure, or whatever its name, you go to E.T.'s planet. And the gimmick of the ride is you have to find his 3 friends, and one of them is just a mushroom.
Oh yeah,
He's just a talking mushroom, and he goes,
that.
"Welcome home" to E.T. But yeah, it's like they're all like plant people on his planet.
Yeah, but I thought that was really interesting. That was like a fun fact I just learned. And somebody was just like, "Well, doesn't he have a heart?" And it's like, let's not talk about that.
So I was like, we're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah. But so the end there of with honors, that was kind of a little rough for me. But
It turns out Joe Pesci is actually a fungus. It's really crazy.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But no, I think Pesci was great. You couldn't pull this movie off without like I think those two. Although I have was it
Maura Kelly?
Maura Kelly? Oh God, she's like so
The most incredible voice.
Yeah, like incredible in every sort of way. Like she's very much her own person in this. She's her own role, and like back in the day, especially back then in the 90s, it wasn't like, women were always typecast in a certain sort of way. And she kind of wasn't.
Yeah.
She kind of like, she just like used men for sex, and, she was totally comfortable with the guys, and she didn't. It was interesting, but like that also made her incredibly, like, to me, like an attractive character. Mm-hmm. Like you're just like, oh, she's cool. She's got it all.
She plays an independent person.
Yeah,
instead of just the love interest.
Yeah, and that's just not common for that time. And it's I think actually a character that is aged and is even better now than maybe then. Mm-hmm. Of course, at the time when I saw that movie, I think it was 1994, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was 9. So at the time, I didn't look at her the same way as I do as an adult. But I thought that was.
It was nice for me to see a Maura Kelly role that I really enjoyed in this, because previously I mostly have just known her as both the voice of Nala in The Lion King, which is great, but she's also replacement Donna in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Okay.
Because Laura Flynn Boyle did not want to do the movie, so Maura Kelly replaces her, and I always had beef with this.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like, they don't look anything alike.
Oh my God. So
Anyway,
here's a sad confession. I have not watched any of those, like the show, the
Twin
movies,
Peaks.
any Twin Peaks. None of
It's
it.
its own flavor, not for everybody, but I think you'd like it.
I am a cinephile. Like, I love anything, especially things that are maybe necessarily different, as long as it has to be different, but with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would enjoy it, but I need to really dedicate time to it. But I am kind of disappointed in myself that I haven't,
Ross, do you have a Blu-ray player?
I do have a Blu-ray player.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Jeff is reaching around to grab something. Not us, just listening to this digging in the background.
Oh wow.
Oh my God. Wow.
Look at this. Incredible.
It's
Is it everything?
It's everything except for the third season, which I have separate.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you
Of course.
so much.
And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to take it.
No, this is a good time because so my wife, who's away all the time, she's working so much, but anytime she is working, I can watch whatever I want.
Yeah.
Which is kind of great. So it's like, it's a bummer I don't get to hang out with her. She's out in, I think, North Carolina right now, working on a commercial out there. But yeah, it's awesome for me to watch everything. Like, I've been watching scary movies. She doesn't let me watch scary movies. Any of the artsy fartsy stuff that I like to watch, I don't get to ever watch any of that stuff. So it's like, just give it all to me.
Take it all.
I'll take it all.
nice.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to just dive into the plot?
I think do we want to get? I think we're this time we would get to like summarizing the plot, which I think we could probably get through pretty quickly though.
Yeah.
But
We kind of
we've
we've
kind of been
done a brief summary.
Yeah.
We'll hit the skeleton notes.
yeah.
Is this my water?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we can discuss the skeleton notes. And we do gotta talk about Pesci.
Well, of course.
Just like in the larger sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can't talk about too much because one day we'll get to the Pesh Pack.
The what?
The Pesh Pack.
What's the Pesh
It's our
Pack?
Joe Pesci show that we're gonna do at some point down the line.
Oh, yeah.
The Pesh Pack.
Instead of the Eric Roberts show.
The Pesh Pack.
Oh,
That's good.
man.
Well, that's going to be a short season. He doesn't have.
He's not. Yeah, he has like 30, 40 roles maybe.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
He didn't start. He didn't like. I don't think success hit him until Raging Bull, and he was in his late 30s.
I think so.
I think.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right. He's 79 now.
Mm-hmm.
Raging Bull. Yeah, he would have been almost 40 when Raging Bull came out.
Yeah. But God, I love him.
He's so good. He's the best. He's the fucking best.
He is the best, and I think, acting in The Irishman or The Irishman was
incredible.
It was so because it was so not Pesci.
He's also the only one in that movie who the CGI looks perfect on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I would
not
agree
that
with
like it's like I adore that movie, and not that like it like detracts that much the Pacino and De Niro de-aging, but Pesci looks perfect when they de-age him to look young.
Yeah, no, he does, and it's actually, people have said that movie, like, it all works, like, you forget about the uncanny valley. I'm like, not for me. Like, I still see it. It's still a distraction, and I kind of hope that in, like, they'll come out in 10 or 20 years. The problem with Netflix, I have a big problem with Netflix.
Yeah.
You can't own a Netflix movie, and I love owning movies. I love how accessible.
Oh no!
Oh my God! Look at that!
Oh my God!
Yes.
Oh my God!
It's because it's Criterion Collection. Anything that goes into the Criterion Collection, you can buy. Well, you can't get a digital copy, but you can get a physical copy, which is the only thing I love about the Criterion. Not the only thing. It's the big thing because I hate that Netflix does it. Like, I hate it.
Yeah, they only let certain movies go to Criterion, and that's the only physical copies they offer.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating to me because I love the accessibility to the average man to be able to go and have
own a movie.
Yeah, and own this piece of art. Like, sometimes people I think forget that this is art. We make art, and so to have access to that is really, I think, great. And I think it sucks that like the only way you get this is if you pay a subscription, and like you can't have any sort of ownership over it. And
if they change it, well.
it's just not for me. I mean, I have Netflix. I think
have to.
Everyone has Netflix. There's too much good content on there, but you got Heat 2 also. Sorry, ADHD.
I'm almost done reading Heat 2.
Oh, you are? I just got it, but I'm reading so many other books.
I'm at page 380
oh
out
my
of
God.
470
Yeah.
Heat 2.
But is it good?
Oh, it's so good.
Really?
It's so
God.
It reads like Heat 2.
Really?
That's the thing. Like, you start reading Heat 2 and you're like, oh, well, is this just going to be like Heat? And you're like, oh, this is a sequel to Heat. Like, when I read books with characters from movies, and I'm like, if I read like hypothetically a Star Wars book, like no one can write Han Solo dialogue in a book. It never works.
Yeah.
I never read it in Harrison Ford's voice.
Sure.
The second I start reading this book, I'm like, oh, that's Vincent Hanna. That's Al Pacino saying that line, baby.
This is funny because like even on the cover, the what's it called on the inside?
Yeah.
Where it's like doing the character description, like
It lists the cast.
It lists, it's like De Niro, Pacino, Kilmer. I'm like, okay, I guess this is how they're doing it. But yeah, sorry, ADHD.
Okay.
But no, I just got the book. I'm very excited.
We did have to talk about Heat. That was very important.
It was. Yeah.
Okay. So we can.
So Pacino's in this movie.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was Pacino in the basement. In the basement, he's like, "Oh, what do you want, huh?"
Oh my God.
Oh,
That'd be perfect.
Does she have a great ass?
So we start the movie.
So we start the movie with a Patrick Dempsey narration.
Yeah.
Immediately out of like, there, he's just like, it's just him in a clock tower with a rooster.
It's a radio station because
Yeah.
it's like, good morning, Harvard. And you're probably all stressed about your thesis paper, especially
Yes.
you seniors. And it's filling in the context of like, oh, okay.
I just like when a movie starts off and it's just Patrick Dempsey in a clock tower.
Yeah.
With
You like
with
movies
a
that
rooster
start
walking around.
Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey in a clock tower with
Yes,
a
I like
rooster.
movies that Patrick Dempsey in a clock tower with a rooster.
Okay.
Because immediately I'm like, oh,
There's two.
Wait. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I thought this was about Joe
Yeah.
Pesci.
Yeah. So, and then I think we're getting introduced to Brendan Fraser right away.
Yes.
He's
He's a
running.
very like straight-laced conservative like Harvard student.
yeah.
He's focused on one thing, and that's his future, his career, and achieving his like honors, like graduating with honors, with his final thesis, which is like some 100-page treatise on how the 21st century, how government needs to be run in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And immediately we get like the core of his argument, which is like the naive faith in the wisdom of the people that the government has to get past. And it's like, well, that's just kind of anti-constitution.
Yeah.
Like right away, I'm like, okay, so Fraser's like hates the Constitution.
A little bit, yeah.
Which the movie does get into. It's not just thrown out there.
Yeah.
But it is a strange way to start off with the lead characters that immediately we understand, oh, this guy's kind of bad news.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think right now there's a lot of conversations about, politically about like our government and everything, but the Constitution, it is interesting, but it's just like, it starts off here, it has a little spot in the middle. There's like a conversation, obviously when he takes him to his class,
the history class.
Yeah. And you kind of get a breakdown of how the Constitution is run and how, he talks about the amendments and everything like that. But I did think another thing that was really interesting that, again, when it comes to current topics and things that they hit on in the beginning and everything, was the appointment of Clarence Thomas into the Supreme Court. They brought that up, and I was just like, oh, wow. And now that's a whole other thing going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
History echoes itself.
Well, it echoes itself, but like the fact that like it's kind of like a bottle like what are those things? Not a bottle, but like where you dig it up.
Message in a time capsule.
It's like a time capsule to a certain extent, where they actually had more things in this movie than I even
that
realized.
Are so relevant.
They are relevant.
Like even just the basic conversation of this movie politically is, what does the government, like, how much does the government owe to its citizens? Mm-hmm. Like, does the government owe everyone to live a comfortable life? Do they not? Is the government for the people? Is it by the people? Mm-hmm. And that's the argument the movie's raising. And nowadays we're featuring that a lot with like discussion of, well, is it the government's responsibility to take care of everybody, or do people have to take care of themselves and thereby take care of the government? Mm-hmm. And so this movie's it's an Stuart's giving me this like lovely smile right now. No, it's
great. I love all of it. I love all of this discussion. No, yeah, and I thought it was very interesting how, especially how the conversations evolve nowadays, is it's gotten more so. I use the word radicalized in the sense of like when you have any discussion about the Constitution, it's dried ink on paper. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is it's a holy grail document that like never changes, which this movie references that it was a document made to be changed. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you guys are saying. It's very much like echoing like things in history to us now. The fact that 1994, so this was 18 years ago?
28? Did 28.
Sorry?
28 years ago.
28 years ago? 1994, 20?
Oh, yeah. 2022, 22 plus 6.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Shit. Damn.
Yeah.
That made me feel really old.
Stuart just aged before my eyes. Robert, Saving Private Ryan style.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say Santa Claus, Tim Allen style.
Oh, yeah.
Or Donovan drinking the Holy Grail style.
Or how many of these like aging tropes can we do?
I feel like very like I got nothing right now. I'm trying to think. I'm like,
what are more rapid aging scenes?
What's that? The guy's name in Old, the Shyamalan movie.
Oh my god,
Gael Garcia Bernal.
Yes.
Yeah, I have not seen that movie either.
I watched half of it and turned it off.
It's pretty good.
Is it?
It's kind of good.
No, it's not. I watched half of it and I
There's
turned it off.
There's a rapper in it. His name is Mid-Size Sedan. That's my only argument for that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so he's Brendan Fraser's in his thesis advisor's office.
Yes.
And he's like reciting the first chapter by memory of his thesis. And of course, the professor's like, oh, yes, like if your thesis is half as good as the first chapter, then I will say...
And he says, then I think I recommend you to graduate with honors.
And then...
That too? Is that too?
And, yeah. And it's funny... This guy, his...
Fireworks in the Sky,
his
AC/DC
professor...
with honors title sequence.
Professor Pitzcannon is played by Gore Vidal, who's like a major public intellectual. He ran for president twice as a Democrat. So, and he later served in government. So it's very funny they got this guy to play essentially this like, I don't want to say a caricature of a like conservative think tank character, but they did kind of get him to play it up a little bit. Yeah, because he is very much playing like the government needs to get off of the people and needs to understand that the people are there to be ruled. So okay, buddy, all right.
Yeah, no, I think it was really. That was another thing that I found interesting too, because how many times have you seen this movie where, like, the bum is like, he turns out to be really smart, but then even on top of it is like he had this backstory where he was this ingenious like writer
from
back in the day, and he was like he's the guy that they've been searching for years and blah 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 blah. But they didn't do that with this, which I kind of liked. I liked that the guy was he just liked to read. He knew he had his own takes on things, but he didn't need more than that. He was curious about what was going on in the world. He didn't want much, but he was a really fun character, like just a curious character and a fun character full of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's done an extraordinary thing in his life. He lived a life. He just lived a normal person life.
Yeah.
Because even at one point, Pesci does bring up the one guy, because he's reading obituaries, and he brings up the one guy, and it's like, Jeff Sweeney died 79. No survivors, no services.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's like he's like that's the life. Like everybody lived a life.
He's like, how did that guy die when he never even really lived a life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
I think, but to some extent, like he was survived by nobody. I think the point was that like, and this is why he wanted to go see his son, was because he was survived by no. So even if you did have a life, right?
Yeah.
He had a life. He did things. He was a curious person, you know, living in this library and doing things, and he was a funny guy. But the thing was, like, if he would have died and he didn't meet Brendan Fraser's character, even though he had a life, it would have just been lost.
It would not have been. You need someone to tell your story.
Yeah, and you needed, I think, family was, you know, this was Fast and the Furious before Fast and the Furious. You know,
Oh my God.
Yeah, this was all about family.
Wow.
Essentially.
My father.
Yeah. So I think, Pesci was the original Diesel, you know.
Joe Diesel.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Pesci. He does kind of have like a cyclist look going at one point in this movie with the big round glasses.
Yeah.
So, he recites this thesis, and then he's walking through, or he goes home to finish typing it, and his 1994 computer, like...
The hard drive fries.
The hard drive gets fried in, like, a brief electrical surge.
Yeah.
And he loses the entire thesis. Thankfully for him, he has 80 pages of it printed out. 88 pages of it printed out in, like, a manila envelope.
Yeah, so he says he's going to go to a copy center.
He's going to go get it Xeroxed, and so he does backup copies.
Can we just pause? It's just the term Xeroxed.
Yes.
Yeah. And how aged that is now.
And they're like, bro, you should wait until the morning. And he's like, no, I got to do it tonight. And like at like 1 a.m. And they're like,
it's snowing out.
Well, and they're like, what do you think's going to happen? It's going to catch on fire. And he's like, I just need the certainty. And I'm like, if I was his, I should put it under my pillow and then sleep. Like,
yeah.
But nah, man, we got to get that scene where it's Brendan Fraser in his like bathrobes and his pajamas,
we
and
get
it's
this
like
fucking
this
like
is Halloween.
Looney Tunes ass routine.
That's what I'm saying.
He's like running through the Harvard town square. By the way, this movie is mostly filmed at University of Urbana-Champaign here in Illinois.
Yeah,
not actual. They did like a few days at actual Harvard, but like he's running through the square and he like trips on a pole and the thesis like flies into the air, and then an anvil comes down from the sky and like hits him upside the head.
He runs over a cliff, pauses, looks down, then falls.
Somehow the storm drain is directly inside
boiler
the
room.
boiler room.
Like, explain to me.
I'm just like, okay.
Yeah,
like
I'm not sure.
because it does go down a storm drain and then wind up in the boiler room.
Yeah,
which implies that like if it's raining, they just dump all their water into the boiler.
Yeah, exactly.
At the bottom of the Harvard library.
Yeah. And so he has to, Maura Kelly has to like distract the security guard.
We get a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible break-in scene.
Yeah.
Very
where
top
she has to like
scaled.
distract him. She's like, hey, I lost a green wallet.
Yeah.
And security guard's like, oh, let me check for you.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. They're just like, no, not here.
Yeah.
Bye.
And then this guy's like, he's like digging under the desk for like 5 minutes while Fraser, who has like a sprained foot at this point, is like hobbling through the library down to the boiler room. Can't find the documents where he saw them drop.
And wait, first of all, he took the elevator down.
Yes.
How does the guy not notice the elevator?
That's what I was
down?
gonna say. Like, because it makes a noise.
Yeah,
people can hear.
Yeah. Okay, that was okay. Keep going.
Well, clearly security's not particularly great at this building because as Fraser opens the door downstairs, he finds a guy living in the boiler.
Yeah.
Not top tier security.
Yes. No. And Pesci immediately looks at the guy from Spirited Away, who's like in the basement with all the arms, the spider guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He has like the same kind of face, and he's like in a boiler, and he's throwing pieces of the thesis into the fire.
Yeah.
And Fraser comes in, and Pesci's like, and he's like prodding at him with the stick, and He's like, here's one thing. I'll give you 1 page for one thing you give me or do for me. And he's like, I want a glazed donut, but perfect glazed donut. None of them cracks on it. Which, like, if anyone's ever eaten a glazed donut, as I'm sure we all have, it's not possible.
Oh, Krispy Kreme.
You have to get it, like, if you want it to not have a crack, you have to get it fresh off, like, the glaze. And then run it over before it dries. Because the second it dries, even if you don't touch it, it just...
Yeah. Yeah, I think
maybe that was his point.
What if Fraser, like, you see him with a glazed donut, it's like got a bunch of cracks, he, like, has a lighter to it, he's trying to melt the glaze so it
Well, that's 5D
regels.
chess right there.
Yeah.
But maybe that was the point.
I think that is the point.
Yeah.
But anyway, he does the logical thing. Instead of getting the guy a donut, he just calls the cops.
He's like, yeah, those are bum living in their basement of the library.
Yeah.
And gets Pesci taken out by campus police, and he's taken to court for the weirdest courtroom scene.
Very weird. Very
so
strange.
It's a good scene, but it's very strange and, like, I was like, well, that's not how court works, but I do like this scene.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm charging you with trespassing,
Public
intoxication, and he gets a third charge.
Yeah. Trespassing, public intoxication, and
I think the other one, I think it might have been like, something like theft or something like that. Because the way his excuses are, the way he gets out of them is like, Your Honor, I wasn't trespassing because the basement of the Harvard library, like, Harvard is a public school, therefore, like, I can,
it's public property.
It's public property,
and thereby in part owned by me.
Yeah. And then he was like, okay, well, you're still arrested for the public intoxication. It's like, well, at the time I was at my home. I wasn't out driving. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even out in public. So he drops that charge. And then for, like, theft, it's like, I wasn't stealing anything or
was it like,
I can't remember what his third excuse was.
He does get a $50 contempt of court charge. $50 or 50 days. Fraser pays it off.
Yeah.
To try and get his document back in a show of goodwill.
$50 for 50 days.
Fraser is goodwill hunting.
Who would take 50 days? Like, who can't, like, even back then, like, $50 or 50 days?
It's a rather ridiculous, like, $50 or 5 days, maybe.
Yeah.
That seemed like, unless the judge was just like, this guy definitely doesn't have $50.
Yeah. He's like, screw this guy.
Yeah. So, but that was kind of weird. But no, it's a great scene. Pesci hams it up for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, obviously.
Pesci's at this point in his career, right around this movie comes out, where he's kind of become the master of ham in Hollywood. Because, like, he consistently shows that he is a real actor, both in this movie and other movies.
What year did My Cousin Vinny come out?
My Cousin Vinny is 92.
Oh, so it was before this.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if we discount Lethal Weapon 2, which comes out before Goodfellas.
Leo Getz? Oh, yeah.
Which comes out before Goodfellas. After Goodfellas, it's basically the run of Home Alone, JFK, My Cousin Vinny, Lethal Weapon 3, Home Alone 2, Bronx Tale, Jimmy Hollywood with honors.
Wow.
So, like, he just kind of gets this immediate run off of Goodfellas. Like, oh, he's kind of the funny guy you put into these movies.
Yeah.
Because, even in Goodfellas, he's like, I'm funny how? Funny like a clown, like I amuse you? And it's like, well, yes, Joe, actually, that's true.
I'm trying to, like, mimic his voice he does in this movie.
It's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
It is impossible. It's like, Jeff, what's your best... Come on, give us something.
What is the accent?
It's me, Joe Pesci. What's going on?
No, that's
You
Joe
can't do
Pesci. Like, what is what was he trying to play? Like,
It's
was it that wasn't New York?
No,
It's like his Italian accent, but, like, is he trying to do, like, where does he say he's from? Is he from Boston?
He went. I know he joined the Merchant Marines.
Yes.
But man, I don't remember.
I mean, his son lives within driving distance of Boston, so I'm presuming he's doing, like, a New England thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he totally nailed it.
Your Honor, I was
Hey, it's me, Joe Pesci.
I was not living in...
7 years ago.
I was living on public property on Harvard at the time, Your Honor. I can't do it.
It's impossible.
It's so
Nobody
hard.
can do it. I mean, people can do Pesci, but I don't think people can do Pesci in this movie.
No, it's so specific.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
I guess aware that since Lethal Weapon 4, Joe Pesci has only done 5 things.
Yes, which upsets me, and I love Pesci so much, and I'm very, very selfish in the fact that I want more Pesci.
Let me read for you these 5 things he's done since Lethal Weapon 4, because he essentially retired from acting in 2000. He did a cameo in the movie The Good Shepherd, which is a De Niro movie. So
Directed,
he does as a friend. He's in Love Ranch.
Okay.
He voices the King of Mosquitoes in the animated film A Warrior's Tale in 2016.
Okay.
He is Russell Buffalino in The Irishman. And then he is in a Home Alone themed Capital One ad in which he is in one shot, and it's him on a couch watching the Capital One Home Alone ad.
That is interesting.
The commercial has Macaulay Culkin. It's a whole thing. And this one is just Joe Pesci on a couch watching it, being like, there's something familiar about all this, you know?
You know,
That was a good voice.
And then he just signed up to be in a Pete Davidson Peacock comedy.
Oh, jeez.
It's a very strange run he's done.
Yeah, and you know he also did Gotti, right?
Yes.
So he did Gotti and got cut.
And he, in fact, it was in every scene of the movie, and they cut around him.
Yeah, they cut around him, and he sued them. He was really pissed because, I think the project was actually really important to him.
The Gotti story is he never got to filming.
Okay.
Because we did talk about this in our last in our
Travolta.
5-hour Gotti episode.
Travolta.
It is a 5-hour episode.
Because it's the same movie, just down the line. He put on 30 pounds to play Angelo in it.
Okay.
Angelo Bruno? No, I can't remember what the guy's last name is.
But Angelo's...
Angelo,
right.
the fucking idiot guy in Gotti who keeps
They say Angelo died of cancer, but I'd say he died of a broken heart.
Funniest movie ever.
Oh my God.
But he put on 30 pounds to play Angelo in it.
Sure.
And then they recast him with someone else.
Yeah.
And he sued them, and that's why Gotti didn't get made in that iteration. And it went through 8 years of litigations until finally the rights lapsed again, and that's when Travolta came in.
Gotcha.
And made Gotti happen on his dime.
Boy, I bet he.
And that
wishes he
basically
didn't
is
do that.
you can, in some respect, say that Joe Pesci is responsible for this podcast.
Yeah.
Because this podcast doesn't exist without Gotti. Gotti doesn't exist in its current form without Pesci.
Oh my gosh.
Stuart now hates this movie.
Did I say I liked With Honors? I
Yeah.
fucking hate it.
I mean, it's
man.
just so funny. Yeah, Pesci, that, I haven't seen that movie. I know that E from
Entourage
directed it.
Pitbull does the score.
Oh gosh.
I basically I mostly exercised Gotti from myself by talking about it for 5 hours earlier this year.
It really is a 5-hour long episode.
Wow,
Let
really?
It is 5 hours and 20 minutes long.
Ooh. That's intense.
It's a lot of different segments.
Okay.
So it's not like we were just sitting here talking
about
we were
God.
actually sitting here talking for 12 hours with different groups of people, and then we cut them all together.
Oh man. That's
It was
a crazy
quite an
episode.
undertaking.
Yeah.
5 hours and 6 minutes.
Wow. That's
Let me tell you
something.
something.
And I was there for all of it.
So was I. It was a good time. By the end, he just wasn't speaking.
Yeah.
I literally just stopped
Dead
talking.
silent.
That's
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
there's something to be said for a movie that you can talk about that much.
Yes.
There's
so much context in that movie. There's so much context.
It's like the Ed Wood thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how you could talk about his whole thing.
Yeah.
Although they didn't really talk about his life after, and how it spiraled down in the movie.
But that's why that movie's so good.
Yeah.
Because it ends right at the point where he's like, oh, I'm going to be famous.
Yeah.
It's like this optimistic G-wit. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Ed Wood.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. So after he bails
Yes.
Joe Pesci out of
Yes.
jail, then that's when they kind of come to their agreement, or however.
Yeah, they're like, you do one thing for me, I give you one page.
And it's like one night, allow me to stay with you for one night with dinner included is 10
Yeah.
pages or something
Yeah.
like that. So
He brings him home.
Yeah, he brings him home. He lets him sleep in a broken down van.
There's like this there's like this thing that they only kind of mention where it's like they had a roommate who had a psychotic break, left all his belongings and his van at the house and moved to Bali.
Yeah.
In which Joe Pesci's only reply is, "Oh yeah, I've been to Bali."
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know more about this guy.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I don't know what the purpose of the invention of the character was, other than just like having an extra room. Whereas you didn't need it because it was just like up in the attic.
Right.
And so you could just say, oh, you could go stay up in the attic. But like,
yeah,
they had this whole backstory for this.
They wanted to lock their doors from Pesci from being able to go in their house at night. Maybe it's what it was.
I just don't understand what the purpose of this made-up character was.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all made-up characters, but this one in particular,
yeah,
I got to know more about him.
But it seems to always be a trope when like movies and TV, where it's like if you're writing about like a group of like a poor family or a group of poor friends living in like a impoverished like house or whatever, they always have to have a broken down car in the backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone else notice that? Like Shameless had that. I'm pretty sure there's a broken down car in the backyard of the Shameless house.
Yeah. Well, Shameless though is like South Side,
Yeah.
and like it's in the city. There's so many broken down cars.
Right. And this is like, New England, northeastern area, poor college kids, probably, like making the ninth night in a row of like ramen or spaghetti or however. I mean, it sounds like, they're all kind of, all four of them are tightly strapped.
Yeah.
Cash wise.
One thing I actually really admired was that the house actually kind of looked like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like you go to watch Friends and these young 20-somethings have this like two incredible apartments in Manhattan.
Yeah.
That's just like incredible.
Very like cheaply owned.
Yeah.
However it works.
But this looked like a place that when I went to college, like this is where I stayed.
That four people could plausibly like pay for and stay at.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of like my like junior year house in college because it has a lot of similar vibes. But yeah.
I think that worked better than the clock tower.
Yeah.
Yes, the clock.
Yeah.
The clock tower with like kind of dodgy backdrop outside the window.
Oh, you could totally see that backdrop.
You could very see that it was like.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up earlier, was like how the backdrop, I'm glad you brought that up.
It was a little distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I can't, we're over an hour into this recording, guys, and I can't even believe we haven't mentioned it, but Ross, you're like a lighting technician in its essence, grip and all that stuff in the film industry here in Chicago. So I'm interested in your thoughts on like that sort of specific element of the film.
It's interesting. It's actually better than I would have expected. Like for this, again, the style in the 90s, everything was pretty formulaic. And this was to a certain extent. Like it wasn't like a noir sort of high contrasty, like very bright on one side, very dark on the other side of the face. Like it was, but it also felt like lived in lighting. Like when they were at their house, it felt like it was natural lighting. Yeah, they still lit their cast, and there were still some beauty shots, especially like on Fraser and Moira Kelly. Like there's like when she's over at the fountain and stuff. She looks gorgeous and stuff like that. But for the most part, I appreciated that it wasn't so cookie cutter. That there was actually a little bit of kind of truth to it. If you look at Gus Van Sant's movie, the Good Will Hunting, it's a little bit more edgy, so it's a little bit, there's a lot more shadow, and it's, there's a lot more focus on the actors, and it's a lot more textured, whereas this one, there's less texture going on. It's a little bit flatter, but still nice, and I appreciated it. I don't think there was anything wrong with it. It's definitely not like what are some like 90s movies that I just can't stand to even look at them because they bother me so much. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like, especially continuing with the Good Will Hunting, that New England, Harvard, East Coast overcast look as well.
Yeah.
So it always feels like it's always like gloomy and dreary and cloudy over there.
Well, that is a fun thing that I read about this movie. Is that
I read this too.
That because this movie's set during the winter, there's actual snow on the ground.
Right.
But it didn't work for what they were trying to do, so they had to shovel all the snow out and put fake snow down.
Yeah.
Which must have just been the most infuriating thing.
Yeah.
As like one of the guys just shoveling, you're like, oh, finally, and then just like an effects truck pulls through and just leaves a layer of snow.
Oh my god!
They said the snow didn't look real enough. It is what I read. Like it didn't look real for them, so they had to add the snow, which is just that's got
better for camera, maybe like.
Or it just reminds me of when we shot this show called Next. It was one season on Fox, but
yeah.
It takes place in California, but we're in Illinois, and there was a part where I remember a day where we were shooting this scene at this kid's birthday party, and the scene takes place outside, and it's supposed to be sunny California, and it's just snow,
dreary.
Oh my
it's snow everywhere, and we had to be outside, and and then all the extras and everybody had to be in shorts and stuff.
Oh my god!
And it was literally maybe a few degrees above zero. And yeah, I just felt like I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is crazy." And so it kind of reminded me of that whenever I read that they had gotten rid of the snow, like the things that the film industry does.
Yeah.
To take you on these like adventures and these trips and tell you these stories. Oh my god, it's ridiculous the things that we do. We spend so many hours on set, a lot of times 12 hours or more just to make these little things like snow.
Yeah.
Take the real snow out and put in the fake snow to make it look like real snow. Isn't that silly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my god.
It's very silly.
Yeah.
God, I can't imagine the casting complaints from that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I haven't. I was about to say
something similar happened to me on a movie. I can tell you about it later.
Yeah, well, we got so many like casting stories offline. But so at this point, it's the next day, and the roommates are still kind of getting acclimated to Joe Pesci. I suppose we can kind of speed through.
Fraser
a lot of this
tries
stuff.
to like hide that Pesci's out back, and they immediately just
They
start hearing him.
immediately hear him.
They're like, well, there's a guy in our backyard.
Well, he goes to the kitchen to grab like a plate of spaghetti, and then goes back
and
outside.
then goes outside where it's snowing.
And
he's like, I'm just going to eat out here. And they're like, well, clearly he's giving it to the homeless man in the backyard.
Yeah. And so the next day, he gets like 10 pages from Pesci. And then Pesci, I like this little scene. He's like, I want you to help let me carry your books. It's like, oh, well, what do you want in return? It's like, I don't want anything in return. I just want to
doing you a kindness.
I'm just doing you a kindness by carrying your books. And it's so hard for Fraser to like get over that.
Because he has a very like
transactional attitude.
Transactional mindset on the world.
Yeah.
Sure.
That, you get something, you give something, especially from his ideas of like, people expect a lot from the government, and they should give something in return. Yeah. And this is just kind of, continuing on his mindset for that.
Sure. I think I could definitely go with that. I mean, obviously the whole beginning of their relationship within 2 seconds was transactional.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh, you want this? Well, I want this immediately. Like he was throwing the stuff away, and then he's like, that's 88 pages. He's like, well, no, it's 82 pages. So you're going to need to, do some swapping for me. So I kind of get that, but no, it was a very nice addition to, like showing that the guy wasn't just all about like, hey, I'm not just trying to take shit from you, but like, I am. But like, you're also struggling. Yeah. One thing that I actually really appreciated was while he was wearing the cast and it's cold outside, he had like just a sock over top, just his toes. Yeah. Because, that's the one part of the cast, it's not covered. And I was like, I get that.
It's a nice bit of costuming.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's just like great.
It's also like an interesting performance bit to Fraser that almost throughout this entire movie, he is like on crutches.
Yes.
And in a cast. I don't know. I know there's lots of movies that do that where the like.
But he's
Lady
he
Bird.
has to work extra hard on that.
Right. Yeah. It's a nice little extra thing that they do with him, and it's a nice continuity thing that they don't really let up with.
Yeah, but I didn't understand one thing though. Like, why did he only want? Like, they even asked, like, why do you just want the one crutch? Like, how does that help you? He's like, I could do it. Why? Why would you want to? It looks like you're struggling
So much more.
so much more.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was Fraser's decision.
I feel like it's a character thing where he's just the guy who like he's trying to live out the idea of like the government shouldn't help people, and he rejects help.
Sure.
And like he doesn't want to look weak.
Reduce the amount of things he relies on.
Reduce what he relies.
Yeah.
Because he even has like that weird artwork in his bedroom where it's like Department of Power, and there's a picture of FDR.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's very strange. But he's very much opposed to like, the New Deal ideology. It seems to be his bit.
Yeah.
But they get into this back and forth, and nothing of like note happens necessarily right away with it. I'd say the next big part is when he brings Pesci to class with him.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
He goes to a lecture with Gore Vidal, who's like immediately just walks in and is like, "The scum of the earth must be deposed." Like, whoa, buddy, come on.
Just like the people do not know what they want.
Only the government does.
Can a president kill everyone?
Yes, his whole argument is, can a president wipe out all life on the earth?
Is it
and
a
is there
king?
any difference between a president and a king?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he needs congressional approval. And he's like, he can wage war for 90 days without congressional approval. Can fire a nuclear device if he wishes.
I did appreciate that, but like I like that he's like, Pesci was like, this sounds like a setup. Like whenever he was asking, he's like, don't be a hero.
Yeah.
And then Pesci came out, and he had to have that moment. But it was a good moment. It was like it went to lend itself to his character not being as dumb as you would think. He is a well-read person who is.
I like the idea that Pesci was hiding out in the basement of a library and spent his time just reading.
Yeah.
So he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Like he seems like curious people are generally, and I think genuinely, more interesting people because since they're curious, they learn new things. They're looking for new things. And his character definitely seemed like that.
Yeah.
And he was passing on his experiences and his knowledge in a very Pesci way to Brendan Fraser, who had to go through this journey of like seeing a different perspective, not only about what he thought about people like that are less than, but also just a different perspective just on the world.
Yeah.
And our country, like how he had talked about the founding fathers and putting in so that this document could be changed, by adding these amendments.
Yeah.
So.
And he lays that's such a good scene, and then the whole class gives him a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that this, in addition to like changing Fraser and changing his roommates, he does in some small way change the professor.
Yeah.
Who at this point is he just is unwilling to hear opposing viewpoints. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the movie, he doesn't believe in them, but he respects the opposition.
Yeah. I think what's the next because this is the only part in the movie where I kind of thought it dragged a little bit was sort of its second act where
he just kind of like ingratiates himself with the kids a little bit more.
Yeah. And I feel like we can almost like sum up that as what you just said, that he's just getting closer with the kids to the point where like the next big bit that I remember is I think when he like disappears almost.
Well, yeah, because it's like Sub-Zero, and he's in the van in the back, and he's like, can I get another blanket? And Fraser's like, oh, yeah, let me grab you one. He's like, can I sleep in the cellar tonight? Like, I'll give you 10 pages for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fraser had already asked, like, his roommates, hey, can you sleep in the cellar? And they're all like, well, I don't know. No, not really.
Yeah, it was just Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff's
just Jeff.
dick.
Yeah, I know. Fuck Jeff, right?
Yeah.
Fuck Jeff.
And so he goes back out, and he's like, sorry, the basement's flooded right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'll get you a blanket, though. And then he walks away, and Simon's just like, yeah, sure. Yeah. And the next morning, he goes out, and he finds a note that says, you lied, deal's off.
Yeah.
and then he doesn't see Simon again for like a month.
Yeah.
It's seems like a long period of time passes.
At this point in time, I register all this, and I think, when was his thesis due? Because like it seemed like at the very beginning of the movie that he was on a time crunch for it, but then they spend a lot.
Well, it's established
of time.
it's not due until the end of the school year,
and it's not close.
and
to
he
the
already
end
had
of the school
80
year.
pages done, like at the beginning, which was like October-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's Christmas now, and he can't find Simon anywhere. And then Christmas break, because he's staying in town for Christmas break.
Yeah.
Everyone else is going home. Moira Kelly tries to get him to come home with her, and he's like, no, because like the two of them want to be a
I don't
thing.
think she was like that until later on in the movie. Like probably right around that.
Yeah.
I don't think like she had him come in while she was showering. Like she didn't even like think of him in that sort of regard then.
But he is, because he says I would love to be that razor right now.
Oh yeah. 100%. I think that his journey as he changed is what attracted her to him.
Yes, he starts being a little more open with his views. And open with other things too.
Ew. There's a sweet little Brendan Fraser shirt off scene there.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oof. Is this when he gets visited by the other homeless guy?
Yeah, the other homeless. It's Christmas, and he gets visited by the homeless man of Christmas past, present, and future.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, are you Monty? And he's like, yeah. It's like,
can I come in? I have a note from Simon, but he said you'd give me a meal.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about this particular guy is he does sort of a similar thing that Simon does, where it's like, I have like a ham and cheese sandwich. It's like, do you have mustard? It's like, yeah, I'll take mustard. It's like, it's the idea of like, they'll take food, but they'll also they'll ask for more. Rather than just like, I'll take what I can get. It's like,
there are things he prefers. There's food that he likes.
Exactly. And people might interpret that as being like, oh, well, shouldn't they get whatever they can get? But I think it's also a dignity thing as well. It's like,
it's nice that he can ask for, I'm trying to find the actor who plays this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But he's like trying.
Be his only thing.
Homeless man number 2. Okay. I thought I recognized him from something, but I suppose
Homeless man number 2. Oh my god.
Man.
After I just got done making a point
man number 1
about dignity.
And that's Joe Pesci.
Yeah, I guess Joe Pesci's number 1.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there we go. There he is. There is a homeless man number 1, played by Clebert Ford.
Oh, okay.
What's Clebert Ford doing right now?
Okay, this
He must have been the dude on the bench. Was he the guy laying on the bench?
So Clebert Ford is the guy who comes into the house. He's in a few Spike Lee movies.
Okay.
None like major roles, but he's in them.
Sure.
So then he gives Fraser the other pages and says, hey, this is all from Simon.
Yeah. And he left you a note. And it's like, it's a poem. And it's like, see not through my eyes, see not through the eyes of others. Like, kind of just, I can't remember the exact wording of it.
Yeah.
But it's a poem essentially telling him, like, find, like, your own viewpoint in this world. Find something you believe in. Truly, stop trying to parrot the ideas of others.
Yeah.
And so he's like, you got to tell me where Simon is. And he's like, all right, he told me not to tell you. But as long as you know he doesn't want to see you, here's where he's at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he tells him he's at this shelter at a church.
St. Peter's Shelter.
Yeah. He goes to the church and knocks on the door, and a pastor answers, says, son, there's no shelter in this church, and I've been here for 35 years. If there's ever a shelter, it's right across the street.
Yeah.
And that's where he sees like the alleyway.
With a bunch of homeless
encampments there. He finds Joe Pesci shivering in the cold, coughing, sick, and brings him home.
Yeah, and they spend Christmas together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny, not too long ago, I just kind of had a moment like that. We were doing the promo for the new Justified show coming out, and they had us parking. We were downtown, and I came out of... I had left something in my truck, so I had to leave set, go... to my truck, and I came out, and there was an alleyway full of homeless people, and then there was a homeless guy that was like dead in the middle of the alleyway. We had to call. I had like called production and was like, "Hey, we need to get a cop over here."
Yeah,
it was pretty was pretty sad.
Yeah, it's
like
upsetting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, it
wow.
it was right next to that bar. Maybe I shouldn't say the bar. Give them some bad PR.
Yeah.
The bar has my name in it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
okay.
downtown. But yeah, it's it was that was a sad little sight. It kind of adds more context onto that scene.
Where it's like they just kind of, that's the only place they can find shelter and camaraderie is in like an alleyway out across the street from a church, which is supposed to be a sanctuary.
Yeah.
And so he brings Pesci home and they spend Christmas together. Pesci cooks Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
He cooks chicken.
Oh,
And
yeah, this
he's just
scene.
casually like, yeah, the plucking was the hardest part. And Fraser's like, what?
What?
Oh boy.
And then they figure out it's the
Yeah,
it's Patrick
Dempsey's rooster. We haven't even mentioned Patrick Dempsey in a while, but he's still in there. He's still here.
He's
Yeah.
a fun character. And although, okay, quick question. At the end of the movie, Patrick Dempsey, like, he got a new animal.
He buys a cow.
It's a cow. Okay. But we never see a cow.
We never see the
but
cow.
He called it, what, Bessie or something?
Yeah, he
like
says
that?
like, goodbye, Rookie or whatever.
Yeah, it was like clearly a cow name.
Yeah, and then he's like Betsy, and then you hear Mrrr.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like, I don't know if he just has the sound effect or if he actually has a cow.
Yeah.
I hope he actually has a cow.
Because, like, where would he put the a cow? Like,
Well, Simon dropped dead, so he can put him in the attic.
Oh my
true. Yeah.
god.
That's dark.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
All Jeffs are dicks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
So Fraser brings Pesci in, and very
Yeah.
soonly after discovers that he's sick, and that
Yeah, he finally reveals, like, in the Merchant Marines, he was surrounded by asbestos.
yeah,
And, like, he's just, like, is dying of asbestos poisoning.
yeah. And he's got like
He might be entitled to financial compensation, I've heard.
if you or a loved one has been affected by mesothelioma,
Yeah. He might be entitled. And he
Yeah.
does actually get disability from the government.
Yeah.
And that's how he pays his rent, because he starts living in the upstairs room.
yeah.
But he has a whole, like, Mark Ruffalo style, they knew moment, where it's like the government knew about this and they did nothing for these people.
Yeah.
And, like, I do like that this movie continues to have this metatextual element to it of,
Yeah.
in addition to just being about, like, this guy and this arc that the characters go through, it is this larger way about how the government has failed the people at the lowest rungs of society.
Yeah.
And it never forgets that. Like, it doesn't just pay lip service to it. It puts the work in and sprinkles that idea throughout the story.
Yeah. Although there is, he also kind of, though, like, his character, there was, like, he wasn't giving his name to anybody in the, like, sort of government, Social Security or anything, to take any sort of handout from, which was interesting to me.
He drops his pride about it eventually.
Yeah, like, I think he was so disgruntled being in the military and what they'd done to him. That's why he didn't want anything from them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he, like, clearly loves the Constitution.
Yes.
And the Founding Fathers. And he sees the benefits of what, at the time, you know, the American dream is or could be, and he just chose not to engage because he was so angry. But when he lets go of that anger, he'll take the money and live with these people that show him love.
Kindness.
Yeah, I think true love, like, him and Fraser have, like, a deep love for each other, especially at the end of the movie. And whenever he confesses that he left his family, I think that was him really opening up, because Fraser had asked him earlier and he said it was none of his business. But I think that was him opening up and saying, you know, I trust you enough and I love you enough to just be honest and tell you this awful thing that I know you're going to really hate because your father left you.
Yeah, because
But-
Fraser said that to Pesci quite earlier in the movie. Like, that, like, his dad left when he was very young and his mom was premature. Was working or something like that.
Yeah.
Or he had a great mother is what he said. But,
Yeah.
you know, his dad left them and got married to somebody else and had another kid. And the only time that he had any contact with his dad is when he got into Harvard. His dad said,
Yeah,
congratulations.
sorry, I can't help.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes to show, like, and I think I think the most profound, or the biggest message that I think that this story tried to say was like, this guy fucked up everything he had with his family, you know, because of his own inadequacies, his own fears, he even called himself, he was a quitter, you know.
Yeah, he says, you're a loser, but I'm a quitter.
Yeah. Whereas, and then it's the same with Brendan Fraser, like his family let him down, and even when Joe Pesci goes to see his son, like, you know, he just wanted to see him.
Yeah.
But at the end, it wasn't about him and his son. I think that was gone. That he had realized what he had done, and his son was in, you know, wherever. And what really comes around is like the family that you choose can be almost more important. And that's where that love between those two characters. Yeah.
And that I do want to talk about, because, like, you know, he's dying, and he says the one thing he wants to do is go see his son.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the scene between him and his son.
Yeah.
I like how there's no reconciliation that goes on. There's no like grand, like, I love you, son, I love you. I like that it's hard, it's real. Like, Pesci, like, his son comes out and he's like, I'll talk to him for a minute. And he comes out and he's like, I'm your dad. And the guy's like, sure. Yeah. Great.
And then his daughter comes out. It's like, who's that? And
it's like, it's nobody.
It's nobody.
Yeah. I like that there's no emotion in it for either of them. I mean, Pesci has some emotion in it.
Yeah.
But it's about the closure provides all the characters in that moment, even if it's not like some grand. Pesci just gets to know his son's okay and he has a granddaughter.
Yeah.
The son finally never has to wonder what happened to my dad anymore. Like, it's the sense of closure, even if it's not like cathartic.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I think, obviously really important, but I think it just all came down to relationships. And we had to
close the book on that one.
Well, and you had to be honest about it. You had to be like, okay, well, this guy really wasn't in his son's life, and he, fucked up. And luckily, the kid turned out well.
Yeah.
And the same to be said about Brendan Fraser's character. He turned out well, relatively speaking.
And I mean, after that scene, then when the car scene, when he like tried to get out of the car, and Brendan Fraser is like the dog.
Yeah.
Because he's like, was there a story that he said earlier?
Yeah, Pesci told a story about when he had a dog as a kid, and it got old and it was dying, and it just went out into the woods and it laid down. And if you tried to move it, it would bark at you, and it just died there. It chose to die in that spot alone.
And that scene, I almost broke at that scene, because literally they're in the car coming back from Pesci's seeing his son. And then as he's in the car, he's like, stop the car. Everyone's like, what's going on? It's like, you got to take a leak or something. And he gets out of the car, walks away, and Fraser remembers, like, he's not a dog. And then he goes out and like gets him back in. And he's like, you're not a dog. It's like, get back.
Pesci was just going to go die in the woods.
Yeah. It was, wow.
And so they bring him home, and he says, no hospitals. I want to die with my friends, my family.
Yeah.
And they read him Walt Whitman.
The one,
even if it is the poem.
Pesci's like, oh my God, just let me die already. I'm tired of getting this poem.
Yeah, that's probably like what killed him.
I get that. I get the complaint. I still thought it was a little cute. But,
no, it was. It was, but I think it would have still worked.
If they just faded into a different poem.
Yeah, but I think that, it was a very 90s decision. Like, it was this sort of romanticism of...
They didn't think 2 steps ahead of what that implied.
Yeah, I think nowadays, like, audiences want this sort of realism, and they pick up on little things kind of like that. Yeah. And, like, even, like, when you watch a show and, like, they're supposed to be gritty cops, and you say they have perfect like makeup and stuff, you're just like, okay. Yeah. But like, so audiences are more aware of stuff like that. Whereas back then, I think, especially in that era, it was like, there's always some sort of romanticism in sort of telling the story.
Yeah.
And so that was like that romanticism where they were like, each reading him these poems, but they're like, let's just have it so they're finishing each other's sentences. But if you think about it, you're just like, all right, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. But and Fraser and what's the girl's name again?
Maura Kelly.
Maura Kelly. They hit it up.
Yeah.
And they start their thing. And then it was like a night when they're like in bed together. They hear like a stumble, and they go outside and they see Pesci like on the ground.
Yeah.
And or maybe this is like backed up a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we skipped a beat. The only reason why I got to that beat was because there was a whole thing where he leaves to see his son. That was the due date of his paper.
Yeah.
And everyone was asking, it's like, did he finish it? It's like he finished it. It's like, but he knows he's got to turn it in today, right? This is all coming from Jeff, the asshole.
He says he still has to do the bibliography.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, so is he just not going to finish it? It's like, I guess not. And then he just leaves.
Yeah. And so Simon does pass away that night.
Yeah, he does pass away
He
that
passes
night
away.
when they read the Walt Whitman
Yeah, when they
poem.
read the Walt Whitman.
Yeah.
And then the next day, and then we essentially cut right to his funeral.
Yeah.
I mean, they all cry over it and go to his funeral. And I think Fraser does a really nice job with this scene.
Yeah.
Because he reads his obituary because he knew that he wanted to be remembered for something. And reads like, I forget the exact things he mentions, but he's like, he was in the Merchant Marines. He interrupted a lecture at Harvard. He lived this full life. He did all these things.
And then he talked about his friend.
Yeah, he'll be survived by his friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His family.
His family.
And then
They list
names
all four of them
all their
and
roommates.
something that they're accomplished for. And it's a really nice ending for that character. That he like in his final year of his life, he was able to find the family he'd been searching for his whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the family that he was running from his whole life. He was very afraid, I think.
To be loved and to accept love.
I think he was afraid of failing.
Yeah.
Like, to be a parent, I think, is terrifying. I think just having any relationship with any person, like girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, just those relationships are difficult, and you're not just making decisions for yourself, but you're also, making decisions for this person you love. But at least those people can, I think, just leave if need be. And so, yes, there's pressure, but like once she got pregnant, I think the pressure of fatherhood, it was
too much for him.
I think so. And I think that he realized, what he missed out on. I think he always knew. I think, there's a lot. I think only Pesci would know because he's probably doing he's thinking what his backstory is and doing certain things. But there's certain interpretations.
Because the end of the obituary is he only has one regret in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was that he ran away from home.
Yeah.
But he hasn't lived a life of no other regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we cut to the scene where Fraser is back with his thesis advisor.
And he finishes the thesis, which is now about what the government does owe to its people.
Right. And so the professor, who, you're right, Jeff, has changed a little bit throughout the course. He's like, you delivered this late or something, so...
I disagree with this, but I respect you for sticking with these convictions.
Yeah.
It was late, so I cannot give you with honors.
So I cannot give you with honors, yeah.
But you can still graduate.
Yeah, you don't get full credit.
He says you can get like a C- max or something.
He didn't even get like a cum laude.
No, he just gets his name.
Yeah.
That's because they were then we cut to the graduation ceremony where they're reading all of the people's names and like their accolades and all that stuff. And it's like, Jeff Sweeney, mathematics, cum laude.
Yeah.
And it's like Stuart Elmore, history, summa cum laude. And then it gets to Brendan Fraser where it's like Montgomery, I don't remember what his last name was.
Burns, yeah.
Right. Montgomery. Yeah. Montgomery.
Monty Kessler.
Kessler. Montgomery Kessler. History. And that's it. And then it goes to the next name. And then he kind of smiles with that. He has like I think like they linger on Fraser's face during that scene and he's smiling at the end of that. And then they call for, all right, like, welcome, graduates of 1994 or something. And they all toss their hats in the air.
Yeah, tassels.
Tassels, yeah. And pretty much, I think that's... Is there a scene I'm missing, or is that the end?
No, the end. That frame that they stopped on.
Yeah.
is such a terrible
It's
frame.
so strange.
It's like, why? Like, who was like, you can't even see their faces.
Like, it's the 90s. I knew they were going to do a freeze frame, but like people are like blurry mid-move. They're kissing, but like you can only see their backs.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
That was like, I was like,
Can you try again?
oh boy.
Oh my God. Thank you, Siri.
I was
Did it
so,
just type up the entire thing we just said?
Yes, basically.
but I was just so curious. I was like, why choose this one? Why choose this particular? Like, one thing with movies and stuff is like, a lot of times accolades for like a really cool shot. And, there's somebody on set the other day was like talking about like how like, certain DPs or whoever were getting all these accolades for this incredible shot. And people will talk about these shots and, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll read an interview by some guy who's saying, oh, this DP did all this and these incredible shots. And then a lot of times it's the DP chooses the shot because if he moves the camera over here, you've got like a road when it's supposed to be
1950s.
Like an empty field or some shit like that.
There's a mall over here, or like there's a lot that goes into
Necessity.
Necessity. Like you just have to shoot it and make it work sometimes, and I feel like at the end that must have it had to have been rushed.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't get what they needed, and they were just like, well, this movie, we've got the deadline and we've got to do it, so we just like, there we go. That's it.
That's a freeze frame.
That's it. It's a freeze frame. You've got Patrick Dempsey. He's smiling. There you go.
Yeah, cool.
That's all you need to see.
And then Madonna starts singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the song I'll Remember that was nominated for the Golden Globe, the Grammy, I believe.
Really? Got a Grammy now?
Yeah, this thing, it was nominated for the Golden Globes, Grammy, and MTV Movie Awards. Best song for a movie.
Damn.
Did not get nominated for the Oscar. It was considered a surprise that it didn't get nominated for the Oscar. It also was ranked as one of the ninth worst song by the New York Times, apparently.
Nice.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
It doesn't mean anything. I started off this whole thing about talking about critics and how it's so funny, like, especially now because there are so many. I mean, like they say, everyone's a critic, but
everyone's a critic.
Sometimes I even say, what is the perfect Rotten Tomatoes score? And I say it's 50-50, but 50% like people hate it, and then the other 50% like really love it. It's not in the middle, because that means that whoever made the movie had a specific audience in mind, and they got that audience. That's not necessarily true. It could be like 25-75. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're making a movie with any piece of art, you've always got an audience, Yeah,
and just making a movie for your audience.
Yeah, I mean,
this movie found its audience with time, if not initially when it came out.
Well, I think that what is it called? The Fraser Sance, or the Brendan...
The Fraser Sance?
Or is it...
I don't know what we're calling it.
Yeah, but like...
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think with him coming back into the people looking at him now and kind of going back over his filmography, I think people are seeing it with a whole new light.
And hopefully this is one of the movies that people revisit.
Yeah. I just think that like critics were wrong on a lot of different stuff. Like obviously The Mummy. I think that's got like a 40% or something on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And that's silly. That's a good movie.
It's a great movie. It's an Old Republic serial.
Yeah. It's such a good movie. And I think people, like, when I read reviews, they compared it to Indiana Jones, which I get, like the color palette, and he's like, there's a lot of things.
Like he's in The Mummy, he's essentially positioned as the heir apparent to Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we get to it, and then we'll talk about it again when he's in a Harrison Ford movie, Extraordinary Measures in 2010.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fraser, like, I hope that this is one of those movies that people pop in on and they're like, oh,
yeah,
maybe there is something going on there.
Yeah, it's a good one. And like, if for nothing, go look at Joe Pesci die. It's like, it's not a good death. Like, I don't know if you guys did.
He does just drop dead.
But like, even his face, it's like, and for him being so famous, like him in Casino and Godfather, I mean, those are just some brutal deaths, and they are, difficult to watch. Even in The Irishman, like he didn't die at the
He
end
gets
of it.
pushed away, and then it says that he died.
Yeah.
But it's kind of brutal watching him play that extreme old age.
But he was so quiet in that movie, which was so great. Like,
he's so good in that movie.
He went in a whole different way, and I really like that. I think he's the best part of The Irishman.
He is the best performance in that movie. Although I'm fond of all three of those central performances. And Anna Paquin, even if she only has one line in the movie, but she's very good. Anyway, this movie, I just got to finish up the context here. This movie, cannot find the budget anywhere online, but just for some post-text, this movie comes out, makes $20 million.
Okay.
I'm presuming that's probably roughly what it cost. It doesn't look like a terribly expensive movie. Mm-hmm. Probably somewhere around the same as School Ties. Mm-hmm. But that puts it, about breaking even maybe for early 90s movie logic. Mm-hmm. And we're, like Ross had mentioned, it doesn't get great reviews. It gets decent reviews from some of the big shots, like Roger Ebert thought it was okay. And it was number one at the box office for 2 weekends. So it did kind of like, even if it only made 20 million, it still like was number one for it came out in March.
Especially like back then, being number one in the box office was a big deal.
That meant something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this movie does it has a footprint. It doesn't just disappear. I think it kind of disappeared with time, and hopefully, it kind of reappears in some respects, along with a lot of Fraser movies, as he's being reevaluated now, which is just very convenient for us.
Yeah,
that we picked Fraser to come up.
You guys are so lucky for Airheads next. That's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
We actually recorded that like 2 weeks ago, but don't tell anyone.
Oh, okay.
We're doing these out of order right now.
Dude, that's such a good movie.
I blew up our spot.
Yeah, you did blow up our spot.
I think that's with honors.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any final thoughts to share?
I would say just good, pleasant movie.
Yeah,
I was
a low key charmer.
That's exactly how I would phrase it, Jeff. A low key charmer.
Yeah, I think it's a nice movie to just like have some hot chocolate too.
Yes.
Snuggle up.
Oh my God, this is a perfect hot chocolate movie.
Yeah, it's
God, do I have hot chocolate?
Yeah,
I'm gonna rewind I'm gonna get my DeLorean and go back to yesterday. And make some hot chocolate for a while.
It's totally that kind of movie, and I do think that there's something to be said for that movie. But yeah, I think we've kind of hit on With Honors pretty well, and Heat 2.
And Heat 2.
And Heat 2.
Yeah.
Heat 2 is
and The Irishman and Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Jeff, I think this might be our first ever 2-hour episode.
For Fraser?
For Fraser.
Did Encino Man not hit 2?
Maybe it did. I gotta check. I don't think it did.
Oh, yeah. I think that's
an hour and 47 minutes.
Okay, so this is our first 2 for Fraser.
First 2-hour episode for Fraser.
Wow,
that's an honor, man.
That is an honor.
Yeah, with honor.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a better ending I could come up with for this episode.
We got to shut it down.
I'll just say thank you guys so much for listening to this episode on With Honors. Thank you, Ross, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it was a pleasure, and we hope to have you back sometime.
That'd be great.
This was actually a really good time.
I love this.
Good conversation. Make sure to tune in next week for episode Airheads.
So exciting.
And as always, please remember to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram at TravoltingPod. You can pop into our Reddit, r/Travolting. You can email us any comments or questions, travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
You can find me on Instagram at StuartOwen95.
You can find, I actually do have an Instagram, forgot about that. Yeah, _Ross_Wood.
Yeah. And as always, special thanks to Rebecca Johnson for the graphic design on your phone and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the theme music that is now taking you out. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks, and see you next time.
Bye, Airheads!